to a very special edition of Finishers and Factions. Now, this time we're not breaking down an episode of Monday Night Raw or NXT or Friday Night SmackDown or even a PLE. I'm here to talk to you about this year's class of Hall of Fame inductees. Now, it's a huge class. There are some massive names from the industry. And yeah, this class, let me tell you, it's absolutely stacked. Legends, pioneers, fan favourites. And for the first time ever, a match is being inducted. Yeah, you heard that right. So, whether you're an old school Attitude Era diehard, a ruthless aggression devotee, or a fan of today's modern product, this class has something for everyone. So let's not waste another minute. Grab a seat, grab a drink. Let's take a walk down memory lane. So, the first inductee we're going to take a look at here, we're going to kick things off with the headliner. None other than the game himself, Paul Triple H Levesque. Now, we know that Triple H is no stranger to the Hall of Fame spotlight. I mean, he's already been inducted once before, back in 2019, as part of the legendary D-Generation X. But this time, it's all about his solo legacy. And honestly, how do you even begin to sum up a career like this? 14 World Championships. 2-time Royal Rumble winner, King of the Ring, founding member of Evolution. And that's just in-ring. Behind the scenes, he reshaped the future of the company, building NXT from a developmental territory into arguably the hottest wrestling brand in the world during the mid-2010s. But let's talk moments. One that stands out for a lot of fans is his absolutely brutal street fight with Cactus Jack at the 2000 Royal Rumble. That match didn't just elevate Triple H, it proved he could go toe to toe in a violent, emotional match and still own the moment. Then there's his trilogy of WrestleMania bouts with The Undertaker, particularly that Hell in a Cell match at WrestleMania 28 with Shawn Michaels as the guest ref. And that match felt like the end of an era. And maybe it was. Now, I'm sat here talking about this and I'm getting frigging goosebumps just talking about this shit. So, damn. And you can't forget the entrances this man has had. I mean, come on. Who else could make a Terminator-themed entrance at WrestleMania 31 feel cool? I mean, that thing was cool as balls. His induction was announced during a live WWE town hall. Now, this was a complete shock to him, and the look on his face said it all. After decades of building this business from inside the ropes and behind the curtain, he's finally getting that recognition that man deserves, and absolutely deserves every last moment in that spotlight. The next inductee we're going to be taking a look at here is Michelle McCool. She's not just The Undertaker's wife, she is so much more than that. Michelle broke through at a time when women in WWE weren't exactly getting 5-star matches and 20-minute segments like they do today. But she still made an impact, big time. She became the first ever Divas champion and went on to win the Women's Championship twice. But it was her work with Layla as Lay Cool that really helped set the stage for what was to come in the women's division. When we think of the women's division, we think about Becky Lynch, we think about Bayley and Paige as the 4 horsewomen that brought the women's division into what it is today. But Lay Cool were cocky and clever and incredibly entertaining. I mean, you can compare them to like Mean Girls meets top tier wrestling. That's sort of the crossover we're looking at here. They even held the they even co-held the women's championship, which sparked all kinds of controversy and storyline chaos. One of Michelle's standout in-ring moments was the 2010 tables match at TLC, where Lay Cool took on Beth Phoenix and Natalya. It was rare back then to see women in that kind of physical, weapon-filled match, and Michelle more than held her own. She also had a surprise return at the 2022 Women's Royal Rumble and crushed it. She came out of the crowd in Uggs and took names, hit her faith breaker finisher on Sonya Deville, and reminded everybody that she could still go. Now, the announcement for Michelle McCool going into the Hall of Fame this year was made by Triple H, surprising her live on ESPN's Get Up with her Hall of Fame announcement and her emotional reaction, which made it all the more special. Moving on from there, we're going to take a look at the guy that looked like a real-life action figure, Lex Luger, otherwise known as the Total Package. Luger was a star in both WCW and WWE, known for his phenomenal physique, his intensity, and a surprisingly emotional connection with the fans in the early 90s. And if you remember one moment, if you don't, go back and look at it. It's probably July 4th, 1993, the Body Slam Challenge aboard the USS Intrepid. Yokozuna had just been crowned WWF champion and was challenging anyone to slam him. Now, for those of you that don't know who Yokozuna is, he was a sumo wrestling superstar who took the WWF by absolute storm. Now, he was undeniably big. This guy was huge, and to be able to body slam Yokozuna is an incredible feat in of itself. Now, everyone else who tried this failed, and Lex did this in style. He arrived by helicopter, steps into the ring and slams the 500-pound champ. Now, America went nuts, and thus the Lex Express was born. He never captured the WWF Championship, which still feels like a what-if moment in wrestling history. But in WCW, he had his moments of glory, including his surprise win over Hulk Hogan on an episode of Monday Nitro in 1997, and the crowd absolutely blew the roof off the building. This induction is a long time coming for a guy who gave so much to this business, physically, emotionally, professionally. Now, for anybody that has seen the induction announcements, this induction was broken by none other than our current WWE champion, Cody Rhodes, who went down to another Hall of Famers yoga studio, DDP, Diamond Dallas Page, who's been doing a lot of work behind the scenes with ex-athletes and ex-professional wrestlers to help them get past some of their physical limitations. And Lex Luger, unfortunately, has been suffering with a real struggle walking. And thanks to DDP, he is making phenomenal progress. And honestly, I can't wait to see Lex Luger walk out on stage in Las Vegas to accept the Hall of Fame induction. Now, next we're going to take a look at a absolutely legendary tag team wrestler, some tag team wrestlers from a bygone age. Now, these are, of course, the Natural Disasters, big men with a big impact. Now, the Natural Disasters were made up of Earthquake and Typhoon. Now, these guys were huge. We're talking two massive powerhouses who were surprisingly agile for their size. Earthquake, real name John Tenter, had a legitimate sumo background, and Typhoon, aka Fred Ottman, had charisma and power in spades. Their biggest moment came in 1992 when they finally won the WWF tag team titles from Money Inc. Fans loved seeing these two steamroll the competition, and they took on all the top teams of the era: the Legion of Doom, the Bushwhackers, the Nasty Boys. But Earthquake, even as a solo act, left his mark. I happen to remember seeing a clip of when he crushed Hulk Hogan on the Brother Love show with multiple Earthquake splashes. Kids had to have been traumatized by this. That was a huge feud back then between Hulk Hogan and Earthquake. Absolute madness. And as a team, they may not get as much love today, but they brought old school tag team energy, and it's awesome to see them finally honoured. So next we come to a piece of history for more than one reason, because this is the first time in WWE Hall of Fame history an individual match has been inducted, and maybe I feel like they picked the right one, and it's not just because I'm a Stone Cold fan, but this was Bret the Hitman Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 13. This was a match that was no DQ, submission only, and quite arguably the greatest double turn of all time. Now, Bret Hart came in the babyface, Austin came in as the heel, and by the end, Bret was booed out of the building, and Austin, face full of blood, unconscious in the sharpshooter, was a made man. That visual of him passing out rather than tapping out is simply iconic and has been used, replayed again and again in video packages for decades, and will continue to be used for decades to come. This match wasn't just a turning point for Austin's career, but it was the match that defined what storytelling in pro wrestling could be. Emotionally charged, violent, and perfectly paced. It is about time it got recognised as the classic that it is. And honestly, if you can find it, watch it. Beginning to end, I'm pretty sure it is used to this day in performance centres or in gyms around the world for wrestling as a paragon of what wrestling storytelling should be. And the final inductees this year go into what's known as the legacy wing, and these are legends to be remembered. The legacy wing honours those who paved the way, and this year the spotlight shines on three major names. First off, we come to Kamala. Known as the Ugandan Giant, Kamala was one of the most unique characters ever. With his painted face, slapping his belly and no shoes. But behind the character was a man known as James Harris, a soft-spoken guy who brought that terrifying presence to life. He wrestled everyone from Hulk Hogan to The Undertaker, and you remembered Kamala, and that's what it's all about. Next, we've got Dory Funk Sr. Now, we talk a lot about what happens in the ring. What we don't talk about is what happens behind the scenes. And I'm not talking backstage promos. I'm not talking about any of that. Before anything happens in the ring, people like Dory Funk Sr. have to be involved. He is a legendary promoter and trainer. He ran the Western States Sports Promotion and helped develop the foundation of modern wrestling. His sons, Dory Jr. and Terry, became Hall of Famers, but it all started with him. No other way to describe this man than a true patriarch of wrestling. And finally, on the legacy end, we have Ivan Koloff, the man who shocked the world in 1971 by ending Bruno Sammartino's legendary 7-year WWF Championship reign. Just imagine that. Bruno was untouchable for 7 years. And then Ivan Koloff comes in and ends it all. The crowd was silent. And that's the power of a moment. And Koloff owned that moment. And that's it. We're not going into tremendous amounts of detail because if you sit and watch the Hall of Fame induction ceremony where these people are getting the recognition they so dearly deserve, then you'll learn way more than you ever do listening to this podcast. As much as I try to be as informative as I can, I could have sat here and probably spoken for an hour at the least on each and every one of these superstars that are being inducted this year. And the Hall of Fame class of 2025, it is a lineup that spans generations, styles and eras, from the Game and Michelle McCool to tag team titans and timeless storytellers. This class reminds us why we love pro wrestling. The ceremony takes place on Friday, April 18th in Las Vegas, right after SmackDown and just before WrestleMania 41. All I can say is emotions will run high. Expect tears and laughs and probably a few surprises. It's going to be an unforgettable ceremony. And thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this breakdown, do me a favour. We're on Twitter, Finn and Fan, at Finn and Fan. We are, go back and listen to our back catalogue. We are over 50 episodes deep now on what has happened since WWE hit Netflix like a sledgehammer. And do me another favour. Share it with your friends. Share it with everybody that loves wrestling. Talk to them about it. because that's all we're here to do. We're here to share our love, our passion for this industry, and we would love to have a few more of you guys come in and let us know what it's all about. But until next time, I'm Adam. This was Finishers and Factions does the Hall of Fame ceremony. Stay safe, stay strong, stay legendary.